You know, I remember towards the end of, I'm from Niles, and in Niles you have to live within 3 blocks of your grandparents. Just kidding, just kidding. But my grandparents lived about 3 blocks down the street from me. And I remember, we grew up together, and I remember when they were sick towards the end of their life, and we were able to take them to the hospital, and they were able to be cared for, and they were able to at least have some dignity towards the end of their life. I remember sitting there, and probably because I'm in politics, thinking to myself, thank God for Medicare. Thank God for Medicare. And what you're rallying for, and what this whole debate is about making sure that every citizen who can't find health care somewhere can basically access the Medicare program, the public option. And we have an obligation to support that public option so that everyone in America will have the ability to access health care. You know, in some ways, follow this woman's lead right here. In some ways, we already have a public option. It's the emergency room. It's the most ineffective and efficient way to administer the health care program of our country. And we have a very unique opportunity that was presented to us in January. Historic on so many different levels. But many of you who marched and rallied like you had today, many of you did that in the 60s. I'm not calling anybody old in here, but many of you have done that before. And let me just say that in the 60s, there was some unfinished business. There was some work that is left to be done. And this election has provided us the opportunity to finish the work that needed to be done, from the New Deal to the Great Society, now to a Barack Obama society that we want to implement. And that means that if we're going to compete against China, if we're going to compete against 1.3 billion people in India, we need to make sure that we have the healthiest, most productive workforce in the world. That's how we're going to compete. And so the public option that you are fighting for, the Medicare part of this whole deal, is going to give everyone the ability. And I can't thank any of you enough for how and tell you how important it is that you come down here. Because what happens in Washington is everyone sits in the same room and we all start talking to the same people and coming up with the, hearing the same phrases. And what's important about what you've done today and what you will continue to do is that you are bringing real people to this debate. The stories about people who won't go to the emergency room, won't go to a clinic because they can't afford it, and they get sicker and sicker and sicker. And all of the preventative measures that all of you stand up for and work for that will save us money in the long run, so that we can take some of that savings that we now have in the healthcare system and make sure that there's a nurse in every school across this great country. To make sure that we can expand our health care programs, to make sure that we can expand access for reproductive health for women, and all of these other issues that we fight so desperately for. You are going to be the ones who make this happen. You need to continue to apply the pressure to us who agree with you and to those of the people that are here that don't necessarily agree with you, and make the arguments. We are in a new era of politics now, to where the people actually matter and the people's voices actually matter. So this is not a rally about blowing off steam in Washington and getting, saying you got up at 4 a.m. and got on a bus and all that good stuff. This is about a sustained effort to get this implemented. We're not here to say we tried. We're here to say that we actually got the job done. And I want to end, because I only have 4 minutes, and I'm at 5.5. I want to end with a quote speaking of the 60s, that Bobby Kennedy used to use at the end of all of his campaign rallies. And I think it is appropriate for you, and I think it's appropriate for the time that we're in right now. He would say, I do not promise you ease. I do not promise you comfort. But I do promise you these: weariness, hardship, and sacrifice. And with these, I promise you victory.